Welcome back, Weight Witches. Today I'm going to lead you through some everyday mobility moves that you can try out to loosen up your body and maybe wake you up and get ready for the day, or even help you wind down at the end of the day after many hours of work or a workout. This is not an extensive list of mobility moves. There's really hundreds. A lot of these aren't necessarily for people that are, super into fitness or anything. These can be helpful for anyone, especially people that have a job where they are seated for many hours at a time, whether it's driving or sitting at a desk or something like that. Personally, I know that mobility movements help me not only wake up my body, but also wake up my mind. I am going to go over about 15 mobility movements today, and you can look through the description if you have a specific area of your body that you believe needs more mobility exercises. Or you can go ahead and try all of them out and see which works best for you. Most of the movements I'll show you today you can do in several different positions. So these are things that maybe you can do on the floor on a yoga mat at home or at the gym. You can do a lot of them seated. You can even do them, seated at work or something like that. And some of them you can do standing. So let's get started. Beginning from the top, we're going to do a couple quick and easy neck mobility movements, the first of which is a pretty natural thing to do if you're feeling neck pain, which is rolling your neck or rolling your head to feel out any tightness in the neck area. So you can start by leaning the head forward, rolling it to one side, back, around again. You can do it one way 5 to 10 times, and then switch around the other way 5 to 10 times. Be sure to do this slowly so that you can really feel each spot of your neck and where you might feel some more tightness or looseness. After you do your neck rolls, you can do the seated clasping neck stretch. So you're going to interlace your fingers, put it behind your neck, and just kind of pull down. You can do that for 10 to 15 seconds so you can release the pressure up there. Our next mobility movement will be working on our shoulders. You can do this on the floor, seated, or standing up. Similar to the neck rolls, we're just going to be rolling our shoulders. You can start by beginning to roll them in either position, forward in circles for about 10 to 15 reps, and then switch around and do them backwards in circles for 10 to 15 reps. So this is of course something that you can do seated or standing anywhere. If you do it on a mat, you're going to get into a tabletop position so that you have some resistance below you, and you can feel out the rolling a little bit better. That's just something to try out. Maybe you like that movement as opposed to the seated or the standing way. Okay, next we have the L-arm stretch, which can also be done either seated or in a standing position. You're going to take one arm, stretch it out in front of you, and wrap your other arm around to kind of hold your shoulder. You're going to then reach your first arm out and feel that stretch in your shoulders. You can hold that for about 10 to 15 seconds. Unclasp your arms. Hold your other arm out in front of you. And clasp your shoulder again. Feel that stretch out in your shoulders. Alright, that is something quick and easy to do if you're standing or seated. Next we have a doorway chest stretch. You can, of course, use a doorway or any type of stable wall pole, something that is stable, to really lean your body into with your hands or arms and feel a pull in that front of your chest. So really all you're doing is finding something maybe a little bit wider than your shoulders and pushing into it so that you feel a stretch in your chest. You can do this on one side at a time, or you can do it both sides at a time. Either way, you are sort of opening up a stretch in your chest. Moving right along, we're going to do some arm raises and side-to-side bends. You can do this seated or standing. If you're seated or standing, it's basically going to be the same type of movement because we do want our lower body to stay still and engaged, and also engage up through our core. you're simply going to raise your arms above your head, keeping them aligned with the spine. Once you have them above and give yourself a little stretch upwards, you can lean to one side as much as you can. And one side you might notice is a little bit more flexible than the other, and that's okay. A big thing about mobility movement is learning your own body and learning that ideally you want everything to be symmetrical and feel the same on both sides. That's just not how our bodies and our world works. So you might find that you have a greater ability to flex on one side than the other, and that's okay. But hopefully doing a mobility movement practice every day will help you loosen up everything and become a little bit more symmetrical and even feeling. So next we have a couple movements that must be done on the floor on the mat. So these might not be things that you are able to do at work, but if this is something that you can do at the beginning or the end of the day or before or after a workout, I would highly recommend them. These movements are maybe familiar to you if you've ever done yoga. I feel that they not only give me good stretches, increase my mobility, but they also help me feel strong. So this is another important piece to doing everyday mobility movements, is not only just having your body feel better, but have it feel stronger because it is stable and in control. So first we'll start with the bird dog. You're going to get in a tabletop position with your core engaged. That means sucking your belly in towards the back and making sure that your back is flat. You're going to reach out alternating limbs, hold them there for a couple seconds, and then bring them back down to the mat. So you could start by reaching your left hand all the way out straight, really pointing your fingers, as well as reaching your right leg out and pointing your toes, making sure that there's a straight line from toes to fingers all the way through your spine as well. Then you bring those down and do the other side. So right arm out, left leg out, then switching left arm out, right leg out. And you can do those for 5 to 10 times on each side, or as many as you need to feel stable and strong. Then moving on, another couple things we can do on the mat. You can do something called prayer position or child's pose. Basically you are going to get on the mat on your shins, lean your hips back, really shift your hips back, and reach your forehead and your arms forward. You can feel a stretch in your arms this way, you can feel a stretch in your back this way, and you can also, depending on how far back you shift your hips, you can open up your hips this way as well. So it's kind of a multi-purpose movement. Even though it looks really simple, feel free to kind of sway side to side and feel where you might have some tightness. And stay in this position as long as you want to really stretch out. After that, we can go into what many people call the cat-cow pose. You are going to get on your knees and your hands, everything flexed and stable. Again, making sure that your core is engaged and that your back is flat as you start this. So to start the cat position of the pose, you're going to tuck your chin in, look down, and arch your back up to make that cat-like position. Then you're going to move the other way and bring your chin up, kind of look upwards and arch your back in the opposite way to the cow position. You're going to do this several times, and I encourage you to let the movement flow with your breath. So say you are inhaling for the cat pose portion and then exhaling for the cow pose portion. That's going to help really energize you. Okay, now we are moving into a lot of the mobility movements that are going to help us move our hips and much of our lower body. I know that hip tightness and hip injuries are a huge problem for us as a culture, and I believe doing a lot of hip mobility movements are going to help you immensely in the long run, especially for people that are sitting all day or standing all day. Anyone really that's just kind of stuck in just one position for many, many hours. To start, we're going to do something called fire hydrants, and it's called that because you kind of take the position of a dog that might be peeing on a fire hydrant. You're going to start in a tabletop position, and you're going to lift one of your legs out and start kind of making hip circles. Start with very small circles. Think of yourself as drawing circles with your knees. And if that feels okay, you can start drawing bigger and bigger circles to open up your hips. You want to do that at least 5 to 10 times in one direction, and then switch it around to the other direction for each side. Anytime you are in a tabletop position, you want to keep the core engaged. Honestly, for any of these mobility movements, you want to keep the core engaged just to protect your lower back and your body in general. Fire hydrants, you're probably going to get the best sort of hip circles out of this if you are in the tabletop position. However, you can also do this seated and standing. It's just going to look a little bit different in the sense that you can use your arms to, say if you're seated, you could use your arms to pull your knees up into your chest and then use your hands to make those little hip circles with your knee. Do them both sides. Another way you can open up your hips is just do some standing hip swings or hip circles. So standing up and just rotating your hips, starting in small circles and then seeing how wide you can go. It is totally normal to feel that one side that you're swaying to isn't as flexible as the other, but as you do these movements more regularly, you'll hopefully see that this sort of stuff evens out. So the next movement is what can be called a kneeling lunge or a kneeling hip flexor stretch. You're going to need to get down on the ground. You can put one knee to the ground and then the other leg, you're going to step forward onto your foot and keep the whole leg in a 90-degree angle. To feel the stretch in the front of your hips, you're going to want to squeeze your butt, so squeeze your glutes, and also engage your core, so bring your navel into your back as much as you can. Once you have all of that flexed, you should be able to feel in the front of your thighs that hip flexor stretch. You can hold that for as long as you need and then switch over to the other side. Next, I have one of the most natural and underrated positions, but also my favorite. It is the squat. Of course, you're going to need to be on the ground for this one. However, if you feel that you are not yet comfortable in a full, deep, what I like to call ass to grass squat, then you can practice this from a chair and really just go from a standing position to a seated position and just kind of practice that, getting up and sitting down and standing up. Doing that a few times will not stretch as many of the leg muscles as we want, but it will get you started to eventually get to that full deep squat position. Now, I'm not going to tell you to do a bunch of reps of squats. What I actually want you to do is to sit into the squat and sort of play around with shifting your weight backwards, forwards, and side to side, and get not only a stretch in your hips and your legs, but also your ankles, your feet, and make sure that you are keeping your body as upright as possible as you fall into this deep squat. I personally like to put my hands together and use my arms to kind of stretch my legs outwards to help me deepen my squat. So you're going to feel this in all sorts of areas in your lower body, and I like to sit in this position for at least 30 seconds, if not more than a minute, and it really helps me wake up the lower body. Next, we're going to do leg swings. So you want to find a wall or a pole or something to hold on to stabilize yourself. While some people with great balance can do this without hanging on to anything, I would just recommend this for safety reasons and to get a better stretch, because I feel that you can kick out higher when you're stabilized on the other side. So I would hold on to a wall, pole, something, all right? And you're going to take your legs and just start kicking them as far in front of you as you can, and then letting them swing back as far as you can, keeping a fluid motion of kicking back and forth, back and forth. I do that about 12 to 15 times on each side. And don't get too crazy at the beginning. If you're kicking too hard, you might pull something by going too fast. So kind of start out slow and then kick higher and higher if you feel that you have that mobility to start with. Now we're going to move down to the lower part of our legs, our calf muscles. We're going to do a calf wall stretch. You just need to find a wall or something that you can prop your foot up against kind of digging your heel into the ground and pushing forward so that you feel that back leg muscle, the back lower leg muscle of your calves start to stretch. This is another stretch that, because it is static, please lean into it slowly. Don't go too hard right off the bat because you don't want to pull anything. And that goes for many static stretches. You have to be careful to not go 0 to 100 real quick. So you're going to lean into this stretch for, I would say, at least 15 to 20 seconds, more if you feel that it is super tight and needs more time. Last but not least, we can't forget our wrists and ankles. So this is something you can do lying down, seated, or standing. You just want to reach out your arms, reach out your legs, and roll your ankles, roll your wrists. In one direction you can do about 10 times, then switch around to the other direction 10 to 15 times, just to get them ready for the day and whatever movements they might need to perform for us. Thank you, Weight Witches, for joining me today for these everyday mobility moves. Why don't you go ahead and, after you watch this, leave a comment and let me know which ones are your favorite, which ones you already use, or if you have any variations that you would suggest. This might be the first mobility video that I did, but it definitely will not be the last. Mobility is very, very important to not only strength athletes, but just everyone in general. We need to be better in tune with our bodies so that it can work better for us. So thank you again for joining me. Go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and stick around because next week we'll have some more content coming right at you. Thanks.